Oh, all right. Sorry about that. I thought I had turned the microphone on. All right, so I've got the recording going at this point. I've recorded attendance. That's the only thing I told y'all in the midst that y'all didn't hear, that you saw my lips, but you didn't hear it. So you should be hearing me now. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. So today's session is going to be a short session. I will tell you that right off the bat. Chapter 11, I think it's 11. No, it's not 11.
I think 13.
13. Okay. Chapter 13 really is short. There's not a lot of information in it. So we'll go over that in just a second. Hope y'all had a good break last week. I did work on grading some, worked on the classes some during the week. Also on the classes that I have been taking, because I finished I don't even remember what class was on that I was taking. In any event, it was on certification. I can't think of. Oh, it was Data Plus. Finished it last week. I thought I had A plus starting this week, but I got to check my email again today. I haven't seen anything on it. And it's going to run for like 6 weeks versus the Data Plus only ran 3 weeks. That's the shortest one I've seen yet. As soon as I get my voucher for Data Plus, I'm going to go take that exam. Because even before I took the training on it, I had a feeling I was pretty well prepared for it. And based on what they went through, I think I'm prepared for it at least as well as I will be. It's a brand new certification from CompTIA. And then this Thursday morning, and this could impact some of y'all, I'm going to take Security Plus. You might have seen that on the email that went out yesterday and the announcement change, or you might not have noticed that there was a change on that announcement. But I put Thursday morning that I may be a little bit late Thursday. I think I'm at Floyd that morning. I don't even have a Coke sitting here. That's odd. I may be I expect I'll be late a few minutes there because I think I don't know what happened. Okay, so I'm at Floyd Thursday from 11 to 3, if I remember right. Is that correct, Cortez? So it will be after 11 before I get there. Exactly what time, I don't know. I suspect I'll be there pretty close to there, but I have to wait and see, because my Security Plus voucher I have for taking that class a year ago, that they give it to me and it's good for a year. Same goes for when y'all buy vouchers for your CompTIA exams. They're good for a year. Well, it expires April the 16th. So time's running out on me doing it. So, and if I'm going to do it here at the college, it was on a Thursday to do it. And so I've either got to do it this Thursday or next Thursday up here on Walker campus. I didn't look at the other campuses. So I do know we got a testing center at Whitfield and at Floyd. So I signed up for 9 o'clock Thursday morning. I expect I'll be done in an hour with it. I don't know for sure on that. I think it gives me 2 hours to do it in. But in any event, I expect I'll probably be done in an hour. I've taken it before. This is the latest version. I've been told by people this version is easier than the previous. And from what I was taught on it, that it's more basic information. So I'll find out on Thursday. So I'm supposed to start that at 9. Usually I get done with those in an hour's time unless there's something new and different. Security Plus is not in that category. Data Plus, when I take that one, I would expect the same. But when I took Pen Plus in January, that one took me a while longer. That took about 2 hours, I believe. So we'll play on it. And I still don't know what I made on Pen Plus. I think they've delayed on releasing the full exam. This latest version, version 2, I think it is. So I took the beta exam, and whenever they go to release it, that's when they'll know what are the questions they're going to use, and then they can actually score my exam. Now they've used which ones I got right and wrong to decide what they're going to do as the real questions. And they haven't sent me a score yet on that one, so I'm waiting to see. So that will be going on there. Next Tuesday, we will not have this session. I will be in Leadership Walker that day as we tour education facilities, and that'll take me all day. So I won't be answering email next Tuesday either. We will do the session on Wednesday next week instead of Tuesday. Everybody got that? So Wednesday, not Tuesday. And we've had to change a couple of, 1 or 2 of them before for that same reason. So that's not a new one to y'all on it. Last month, I don't remember if we changed or not, because I missed the session that day because that was the week I was sick. But January, I think we may have had to change for it in January. I don't remember. February, they had their session on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, so it worked for me. So that was when I went to Atlanta. And so I'll still be doing the live session around me helping people doing the cabling. I actually did that a week ago. That I had the first day I did the cabling. There were people standing in the outer office working on cabling while I taught a session. So that's not a big problem on that one. So I'm work around on that I'll be online there along with doing the other. And that's not a big item. So that's what's coming up. And so this week you're doing ICMP. Mason says it's chapter 13. After I look back, and so there's not a whole lot in the chapter. Basically, 3 items covered. One is they talk about ICMP briefly, and then they discuss the traceroute command and the ping command. And that's basically all you're doing in chapter 13. So this one is short. When I did the session yesterday, I think Whitfield joined in a little bit later on that one yesterday. Not picking on you, Whitfield, but at the point when he came in that we were wrapping up. So we got through quickly, if I'm remembering correctly, and it may not have been Whitfield. Because we all run late at times. So here we go on this. So Saturday I participated in the Charleston, South Carolina Cooper River Bridge run walk, and I actually did exactly that. I ran part of it and walked part of it with this friend of mine that he and I did it together. It's a 10K, which should be 6.2 miles, which is from start point to the finish line. but there was 25,000 people or something in it, and he and I were near the back because they give you starting positions in it in groups, and we were in one of the last groups. It was 25 minutes after the race started that we got to the start line as we walked up to there, our whole group, and then we did the whole thing, and then there was some more walking afterwards. So we ended up walking and running about 10 miles that day. We probably ran somewhere a quarter to a half mile at the beginning and said, no, we really weren't in shape to be doing that, but we did run part of it. And the fact we ran a quarter to a half mile says we're in better shape than a large number of people out there. And then proceeded to walk 8 more miles or whatever. So that was an interesting day for me. I did that back in September. If any of y'all had me, I guess that might have fallen. Yeah, that fell in fall semester. So if any of you had me in fall, you heard about it back in the fall. So from in chapter 13, ICMP is covered, which is the Internet Control Message Protocol. It is used with the transport protocol, so it's really a protocol that is sitting on layer 4, not with the internet protocol, which it keeps associating with through the chapter, but it's really a layer 4 type protocol instead. Although you really don't see mentioning of what layer ICMP usually sits on. That's not a question I've really ever seen. But what it's used for is that it's not for sending stuff we want to send. It's for sending messages back and forth. What we're going to be using it for is mainly for determining if we've got network connectivity. And that can be within our network, or have we got connectivity out on the internet, which will be the two commands, trace route and ping, will both work great in being able to help figure out where you're having problems with connectivity when people tell you that the internet's down. Well, obviously, I think y'all have taken enough now that you can figure out that it's very highly unlikely the internet is down. If the internet itself is down, the whole world's got a major problem at that point, because for that whole thing to go down is essentially an impossibility today. And that was the way it was originally designed, was that it wouldn't be able to go down. That's what the Defense Department was intending with its design back in 1969. So ping, and these two commands, neither one is an acronym for anything else. Ping is just the word ping, and that you have seen ping used for several purposes in your life. You've played ping pong possibly. Well, that's ping in there, and you're hitting the ball back and forth. So hopefully you're hitting it to the person. Actually, in the game, you're trying to get it by the person without them hitting it back. But you're determining, are you getting a response back? If you get a response back, you got to hit the ball back again. Okay. You also probably have heard about submarines pinging off the sub to find other stuff out there in the ocean, or ships doing that also. There's pinging occurring also. So the command is ping. Now, it will work a couple of different ways depending on the operating system we're using. In Windows, if you do ping, you'll do ping and you'll tell it the machine that you're trying to ping. You're trying to find out, do you have connectivity to that machine? Now, you could put in the IP address for it, or you can put in the domain name for it. If you use the domain name, the first thing happens is it is going to use DNS and get the IP address. And then it's going to send an ICMP command out, and it will send back a response if it gets there. Now, ICMP messages are high priority messages, so it can be abused. But with ICMP, there is versions of it for version 4 and version 6 that are corresponding to IP. Now, for your purposes of using it, you're really not going to have to be doing anything different. But with the version 6 version of the ICMP stuff, it is using network discovery in the process to send the stuff out. So it's working with that, as we learned about IP version 6 in the previous chapter. So now what it will do is it sends the command out. It sends back a reply if it does. Now in Windows, it's either 4 or 5, and I never can keep straight which it is, that when you do a ping command, it actually sends either 4 or 5 ping commands to that device. And then it gives you back the information on that. So one thing it tells you is if you used a domain name, it will actually tell you the IP address of that device. Second thing is, and this is the part it will always do for you, whichever address you use, it will tell you how long it took to get a response back on each of the pings that was sent. So you'll see how quick did it go to there and come back. Remember, it's a high priority request, so when it gets there, it takes that over anything else coming in and then sends back. Now, that will tell us that we got connectivity to that device, or it'll come back and tell us that it was unable to reach the host, in which case you know you don't have connectivity to there. Now, you can ping any device out there, except you'll find out in just a second. I'm going to tell you that some devices will not respond back. And you can also ping your network card. To ping your network card interface of your network connection, you're going to ping the loopback address 127.0.0.1 if you're doing IP version 4, or if you're doing IP version 6, you would ping ::1. And that will tell you, are you making connection to your network interface on your machine? If you're not connecting to there, that tells you got a problem with your network interface. Machines that have separate network cards in them, that tells you your network card's apparently bad. Something's wrong with it. Okay? Ones that have it integrated in a motherboard means you got major problems. That is, you probably can't just fix the interface, that you may be having to do more to it. But that will let you check that. You can ping the default gateway, because that's a device, that's a router that's on your network, to see are you getting to the edge of your network. Ping something on out there in the big wide world. Now, limitation on it. Because ping has been abused, it is a high priority request, remember. DOS attacks and DDoS attacks use ping. And if you're doing it from Windows, you would need to write a script to tell it to send a whole bunch of pings out. I'm going to mention in a second that there's another way to get around that way on other devices. But you can write a real simple little script and send a massive number of pings at a device. And that locks down that device and that network, because they're having to respond to the pings and can't do anything else. And that turns it into a denial of service attack. The distributed one just says you put bots out there on a bunch of other machines and told them all to go off at a certain time, sending the pings out. And so now they're coming from all over the place, because when they came from one place, that was easy to stop the problem. You just block traffic from that where it was coming from. When it's distributed, it gets very difficult on that, because you're getting it from all over the place. In the firewalls, in a lot of cases, what organizations went to doing when those started appearing and the problems with them, that they set up rules in their firewall to just block all pings coming in, and that they denied any pings from being able to come in. And that took care of that problem, except that meant then that you couldn't use ping as part of your diagnostic on that. And it's a really good diagnostic tool. The school, the last I knew, still blocks all pings coming in, so that you can't ping any of the school machines, that the firewall blocks it. The next generation firewalls, and I don't like that term that they came up with, but that's what they called the current latest type firewalls that have the latest type policies in them to make them really useful, is that they're actually called next generation firewalls. My question is, when we come up with the next big thing on firewalls, what are we going to call that type firewall then? Because we've already got next generation taken, so it's sort of like NT. So they sort of fell for the same thing Microsoft fell for with Windows NT. That was new technology, next technology, or something, and nobody really knew exactly on it, but it was supposed to be that this was going to be the latest and greatest. Well, that was over 20 years ago, and we've gone well beyond Windows NT today. And so those firewalls have the ability, instead, for you to say, I will let 5 pings come in from an address and respond to those, and I won't block the first 5. But if they send me a bunch more than 5, I'm going to block them all, other than the first 5. And so that means then that you can actually ping the locations to determine if you've got connectivity to them. So that makes it a useful command again. CNN uses that approach. I can't tell you other places because I really haven't gone out and tested others, but CNN was always, before all of this stuff happened, that for a number of us that we'd use CNN when we went to test internet connectivity. Because after all, CNN.com doesn't take much to type, and we could remember how to spell it. So it got used a lot for that, and CNN blocked for a little bit, but then they opened back up because they went, well, they ought to be open anyway, but they used it with the next generation firewalls and said, if you try to send us a bunch, you're not going to shut us down, which they had the problem of. People did try to shut down CNN. You'll see Microsoft gets in the news for that occasionally. CNN, some other big name places is the places people like to run DOS attacks on. So that's there on that one. Now, if you use in other operating systems, I'm not for sure on Unix and Apple for sure on what I'm going to tell you that Cisco will allow you to do. I'm inclined to think Unix does allow this, but I'm not sure. But in Cisco iOS, the ping command has an expanded ping command, and that you can do more than just ping a location for that 4 or 5 pings when you send ping 172.3.18.9. With the expanded ping from Cisco, you can tell it how many pings to send out. So you can tell it to send 100 of them. Now, when you send that 4 or 5 or how many ever you send, if there's a few come back that says destination not reached, but the rest of them all do reach, you probably got a good connection. It's just something lost that one out of them. So usually you don't worry about one loss. That's not, you know you're going to lose packets for some reason or another anytime anyway. So one's not a big problem. But you can send out a massive number of them on the Cisco expanded one. Here's the second thing you can do with the expanded one. You can ping from another location to another location. So here's my machine. Here's machine C, and here's machine D. Sitting from my machine, a Cisco device, I can tell it to ping from this device to this device, working off this machine. Does everybody follow on that? Versus normally all you can do is ping from this machine to this machine, or ping from this machine to this machine. But on the Cisco iOS, you can tell it a different source machine to actually send the ping from. So you can sit there off the Cisco device and determine connectivity things off that one machine. Then on Windows, you'd have to go from machine to machine to do some more of that testing type approach to it. And that's real handy and nice on that. You can also send, if you want to send a larger number of pings, so say 50, that it sends 4 and 2 of them don't come back and 2 of them did, you might want to send 20 to see what really happens when I send a row of them, and is it really losing 50%, or is that just happening right then on when I tried the smaller number. So there is usefulness to do that to it. So that's the ping command. The second command is trace route. Trace route actually works off the same thing as ping. It actually uses the pings, but instead of just telling us did it reach the destination and getting a response back, it will actually tell us every router it passes through on the way there. So when it hits a router, that router will respond back along with sending that ping on to the next router. That way then, you know where, if it fails, where did it fail at? Second thing is you can figure out your path that you're going through the internet to get to locations. And both of those can be highly useful information, because if you're losing some information getting place to place, it may be that it's being run too far around in a roundabout way, and that you need to look at changing how you've got forwarding decisions made on some machines so that they make better decision making. But this big place that you use it is, you did a ping and it didn't reach the destination. You pinged to CNN, it didn't reach it. Well, that's all you know at that point. You don't know, did it fail at your machine, or did it fail at CNN, or where in between? Does everybody follow that? Do a trace route. It'll tell you every device it hit, every server it hit along the way. Now you know where it got to. You don't know where it failed at, but you know where the last place it got to before it failed. Does everybody follow on that? And then that will give you some highly useful information. First one is, that will tell you, is it in your network or is it outside your network? Guess what? If it's outside your network, that's not the problem you've got fixed, but you may need to contact your ISP to tell them something's wrong with their network or where they connect to, for them to figure out what's going on, okay? But it's not, you don't have equipment you got to fix or figure out, did somebody unplug a wire or cut a wire somewhere in one of the buildings or out in the, where you got underground cabling out in the yard or whatever. You know it's outside of your doing. So it'll give you that information, okay? So that's where trace route comes into play. Now, trace route is, the command is written 2 different ways. The original command, which was developed in Unix along with ping, when Unix was developed back there in '69 along with the internet, that trace route is spelled out, TRACEROUTE. So it's trace route, one word. DOS, which Windows is based off of, developed from, when DOS was developed by Seattle Computer Works or Seattle Computer something, that Microsoft bought it from when they needed an operating system that they had just sold to IBM, that when it was developed, it used 8-character file names. Unix used 256. I think it's 256, 254 or 256 character file names, okay? Trace route obviously fit in there. Trace route would not fit in 8 characters. So Microsoft's approach on it was, and I assume it was actually Seattle did it, that they put the trace route command in, but they abbreviated it. So it's trace RT in Windows. And we still use those commands today in Windows that come back from the DOS days. Does everybody follow on that? So it's trace RT when you're working in Windows is trace, R-O-U-T-E, when you're working in anything else, whether it's Cisco iOS, Mac iOS, Mac OS, Apple iOS, and there's the question of whether you're talking uppercase I or lowercase I, or Unix or Linux or any of those, that they're all going to spell out traceroute. Windows is the exception. All right, any questions on traceroute for me? Or on ping, or on ICMP, or on anything else, because we have just finished the chapter. And I believe you got some labs to do that you'll play with traceroute and ping in the chapter, which will be good experience for you. Again, if you have a problem with a network that somebody calls you, since I'm looking at Mason's face, I'll use Mason, that Mason calls and says, I can't do anything on my computer now. It won't connect to anything. I can't pull up any of the sites I'm supposed to go to on the network. Or Mason calls and says, Dr. Watt, the internet's down. Okay. And so then I go to Mason's machine, or I may tell Mason to actually put the command in, depending on how much he knows about computers, and tell him to do a ping from there before I head for his machine. And I'll have him do a ping and tell him to ping CNN. Some people will start from pinging the interface of the computer and then go outward. I tend to go from outward coming back in. That I'll see, can they actually connect on out? Because if they can ping CNN, everything should be working. There's something wrong with their browser or the web page they're going to, and then I'll ping that one. And that if it doesn't work to CNN, then I'll ping the default gateway. And if that works, then I'll ping some other site than CNN, probably my own personal site is what I would usually do, and see what I can get connectivity to, what I can't. And if I can't hit the default gateway, but I'll ping the next person sitting beside Mason and see if we can communicate between the two computers, and I'll figure out where the problem is. It may be Mason decided that Dr. Watt needs something to do today, and I'm going to see if he can figure this one out. I'll unplug my network cable, and we'll see how quick it takes them to figure out that my network cable is not plugged in anymore. Or Mason doesn't really know stuff about things and somehow got into the server room down the hall and saw the switch there with all those wires attached to it and said, ooh, I wonder what happens if I unplug this wire and plug it in this spot. And that maybe again, he's going, I'm going to see how quick it takes him to figure that one out. Because I think I've had people do that to me in the past. I don't know why. So that's where all of that's useful. I hope that helps y'all with the chapter. We're just over 30 minutes at this point. So this is our fastest one, I think, for the semester. So there's not a lot in this chapter, but it is highly useful information you're learning in this chapter. If there's two commands that I probably have used the most overall time working on networks, it's these two commands, because they're the most useful when you have a network problem, that it will help you find where you need to go. So if I can get Mason to do that ping command for me, then I know whether I need to go to Mason's computer and work on and figure out what's going on there, or if it's actually in that server room down the hall, or if it's where our connection to the outside world is, or that I need to call the ISP and tell them we got problems. That they got problems, not we got problems, it's their problems, and that they need to get that fixed. And I have done all of those. Because when I used to do it at Swainsboro Tech, that I remember the main cable line to Swainsboro, fiber line back in the 90s, got cut one day, and I hadn't heard about it yet up the road going to Augusta, because they had one line feeding in from Augusta to the whole city. And I called the ISP and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it either. It's the backbone line coming down to us. We just got notified that it's been cut and they are working on it now, but it's going to be 6 hours before they can fix it. That somebody working on road work put the backhoe down someplace where they weren't supposed to. And it was 6 hours. After they did that twice in a month, it was strange. They were laying another fiber line to Swainsboro off another road coming down so that it was a backup to it. So when things did happen again, that it wouldn't shut us off, because we were cut off from the outside world at that point, except for those that were using dial-up that they could still get out, but those that were using other, we had a problem. So, all right, so that's it. If there's no questions, I will wrap it up. I hope those of you that I used as examples today took it in all fun on it, because I wasn't intending y'all as bad people on it. It's just, it makes a whole lot more sense when you're listening to these things to actually have somebody's name mentioned in it instead of just hearing about Alice and Bob did this stuff. And you're sitting there and trying to figure out, well, when you can see these names listed right in front of you, it becomes more alive to you. So I'm going to stop the recording if there are no questions. I will be answering email all week. I'm trying to get caught up completely on grading. I'm a little tiny bit behind at the moment, but I'm grading your stuff. I've just about graded everything y'all had due last Monday, a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, actually. The last Monday stuff was due on. And then I'm going to grade discussions this afternoon, and then I'll get started on what was due yesterday. And one other class in my 2601 class, I got a little bit on their last assignment to grade too. And I think one other class, I've got a few things to grade on them, but then they didn't have anything due yesterday. So hopefully by the time we get to Friday, maybe I can be fully caught up. And once I am caught up some, I'll go back, and if there's anything y'all have turned in to be that was supposed to be fixed and resubmitted, I will get those graded also. But I sort of bumped those down, and then I'll start transferring grades. Hopefully, I know I've seen some of y'all already out there, and I'm sure I'll see the rest of y'all over the next 2 weeks. So